Hello everyone. Today we will understand the next concept related to a database management system. That one is a entity relationship model. That one is again the data model types, and under the entity relationship model we will understand what exact the entity is and the relation between the entity, and with the help of that model how we develop or logically design our database. That is actually the concept behind the model. That one is a data model. Now we will understand the concept. That one is database design and the model. Is a relation between the model and database design. With the help of entity relationship model, we design a database. That's why it's mentioning with the heading that is the database design and the model. Model is used to model the logical view of the system. Means with the help of model, we create the logical view. We already understand about the three views of a database, that is a physical view, logical view and the view level. That one is a three levels. In that, with the help of model, we develop the logical view. Then how exact it created with the help of model, we will understand in this lecture. Then model, that one is a logical view of a system from the data perspective, which consists of this component. That one is an entity type and entity set. We want to understand these three concepts to understand the model. What is meant by the entity, what is meant by the entity type, what is meant by the entity set. Then we will understand one by one. That one is an entity may be an object. Entity may be an object with a physical existence. Means a person, car, house or employee may be the object. Okay. Or the entity, we can say that. Or entity may be then object. Means as a car, we can say that that one is object and it is a entity. Okay. That one is simply the concept behind the entity and the object. Entity may be an object with a physical existence. That is simply the concept of an entity as a point of view of an object. It may be an object with a conceptual existence. Means like what will be the object? Object will be the person, object will be the car, object will be the concept, or it may be the conceptual. We can say that concept, that is a company is again the concept, job is again a concept, and the university course is again a concept. That one is a conceptual, may be the object. That's why it's a categorized with the two type. It may be the physical existence, we can say that that is an object, or it may be the conceptual existence, we can say that that is an object, and that one is an entity also. That's why it's an entity may be an object. How will the entity may be an object, we will understand. Then next, that one is an entity type and an entity set. We understand the definition about the entity. Entity may be the car, or entity may be the student, considered as a student. Now we will understand. Then entity may be an object, we will consider as an entity as a student, consider as a student. Then what exact the entity type and entity set, we will understand. Entity is an object of an entity type. This is simply the sentence which one is gives a very meaningful information. That is, we already say that entity may be an object, and again here it mentioning as entity is an object of an entity type. Entity is an object, means entity may be an object, and again entity is an object of entity type. Means it comes with a three concepts, that is entity, object and entity type. We will understand it with the help of example. We can easily understand it with clearly. Consider student is an object, that is a one entity type. Why it's called as an entity type? Because of student 1 may be the one object, then student 2 may be then in another object. Same means a particular class contained a multiple student, then each student is an object under the student class, and that student class, we can say that that is an entity type. Entity type is a student. If we say that students, then it's an entity type. What is meant by the entity? It may be the individual entity, it may be the single student is an entity, right? Then entity type, that is a student. We classify that entities as a student. That's why the type of entity is student, and the entity sets are the many students. That is simply the concept. That is, a entity is an, that's why it's mentioning as a entity is an object of an entity type. Means entity types means what? Is a student is an entity type. Type, which one is clarifies that it may be the classification about the particular entity, and we can say that that is an entity type. Student is an entity type, and the entity sets are, that one is simply the E1 is a student 1, E2 is a student 2, E3 is a student 3. Means student 1 to consider your class contained as 77 students, then 1 to 77, these are the entities under the entity type as a student, and that 77 student, we can say that that is an entity set, and that set type is a student, and that's why we mention as a entity type as a student, and entity sets that contains 77 students. That is simply the concept related to the entity type, entity set, or it may be an object. Then what, every time it comes with the object concept, because of entity set contains a 77 student, then we can say that entity set contains 77 objects. Okay, simply. Then same time student type, right? Student type contained, that is a, or it may be the entity type contains the student. That's why this sentence comes, entity is an object of entity type. What is meant by the entity? E1 is an entity, and what is this circle shows? That is an entity set. That is simply the concept, and that's why it's mentioning with the entity is an object of an entity type. Okay, everyone understand? Then, and set of all entities called the entity set. Set of all entities called the entity set. E1 is an entity having entity type student, and set of all student is called the entity set. That one is simply the process. Then we will understand the next concept. That one is attributes means what? We already covered the three concepts. That one is entity means what? Entity type means what? Entity set means what? What is meant by the entity? Entity may be the student. Then entity may be the single student, we can say that. Then entity type, it may be the student as an entity type. Then entity set, that is whole student, 77 student, we can say that entity set. That is simply the concept. Then we will understand what is meant by the attributes. Attribute are the properties which defines the entity type. If we already understand that is entity type is a student, and entity types attribute means the student have a roll number, student have a name, student have a date of birth, student have a age, address, mobile number. These are the attributes of a particular entity type as a student. Means student is an entity type, and that entity type have a attribute like every student have a roll number, every student have a name and date of birth, age, address, mobile number. That's why what is meant by the attributes? The particular entity type have a properties. That properties we can say that's attributes of a entity type. That is simply the concept. Then in ER diagram, what is the ER? Entity relation. Entity relation diagram. Then at entity ER diagram, attribute is represented by an oval shape. Means whenever we represent the attribute, it is mentioned with the oval shape. Okay, we will understand in detail about the symbol about the ER diagrams. Then next, that one is Attribute, again attributes have a different type, like I just to mention as a roll number, name, date of birth, age, address, mobile number, but that one is again classified with the different type of types of attribute types. Then attribute types, that one is key attribute, composite attribute, multi-valued attribute, and derived attribute. These are the attribute types. We will understand one by one. What is a key attribute? Key attribute, that one is uniquely identified each entity, means student identify a particular roll number. That's why roll number is a key attributes under the student type. Okay, that one is simply the concept. As per the example of employee type, if we consider as employee type as an entity type, then that one is employee ID is a key attribute under that. That one is simply the concept related to a key attributes. Means what is the definition of key attributes? We identify the particular entity with a unique ID. That one is called a uniquely identify with the entity, each entity, that attribute type, we can say that's a key attribute. Okay, that one is a very important point when we understand the different type of keys under the databases. Okay, then for example, roll number will be the unique for each student. In an ER diagram, key attribute is represented by an oval with underlying lines. Means you want to show the key attribute under the ER diagram, you can represent like this. It's an oval with a roll number and it mentioning with the underline. Underline indicates that this attribute is an key attributes. That is simply the concept. Okay, the next, that one is a composite attributes. An attribute composed of many other attributes is called as a composite attributes. Then ER diagram represent the composite attribute example, that is a address. Composite means combined with many other attributes. A particular attributes, that is a address, combined the many other attributes, that is a street, city, state, country. These are the attributes, we can say that is a composite attributes related to address. That is simply the concept of a composed, is not composed, it's a composed of many other attributes, means we can say that is a combined. Okay, that is a composite attributes. Okay, composite attributes, that means simply the concept. Address contain the another attributes or combine the another attributes, or it may be a address represent with the combination of these attributes, then we can say that is a combination of attributes. That attributes called as a composite attributes. Street, city, state, country, these are the composite attributes under the address attribute. That means simply the concept of composite attributes. The next, that one is simply the multi-valued attribute. Means what? That one is multi-valued attributes, and attributes consisting more than one value, means a particular attribute have more than one value. Like a simple example, that is a phone number or the mobile. It may be a particular student have a two mobile number. That's why that phone number or a mobile number attributes we can say that's a multi-valued attribute. That is simply the example of a multi-valued attributes, and that one is represent with the double oval. Okay, simple. The next, that one is derived attributes. An attribute which can be derived from other attributes, means a particular attributes we can define with the another attributes. The example of that derived attribute, age. How can we derive the age? That is definitely with the help of date of birth. If we mention an attribute as a date of birth, then we can easily find out the age of that particular student with the help of the system date, current date, right? That is simply the date of birth is derived age. Age is a derived attribute. Why? Because of its come from the date of birth attribute. Simple. That is simply the concept. then the complete entity type student with its, then all the types like attributes, then how exactly it represent and how the relation between that one is we will understand the whole example of the student uh, entity type. Then student have a address, then address is a particular attribute, then student, that one is address contains derived attributes. It's about the country, state. Is it derived? No, it's a composite attribute. Address, which one is the key attribute? That one is a roll number with the underline. It's a missed with underline. Student is a key attribute, is a roll number, is like uniquely identified with the roll number. That's why it's a key attribute. Then student with the composite attributes, it's a student have an attribute as address, and address contains a composite attributes, that is country, state, city, street. Okay. Then multi-valued attributes, that means student have a phone number and it's represent with a double OL. Why? Because of it may be a student have a two mobile number or the phone number. That's why it's a multi-valued attributes. Then derived attributes, that one is age is a derived attributes, which one is mentioned with a dotted OL. Why age is a derived attributes? Because of that one is represented with the date of birth. It's a represent with the date of birth. That's why it's a derived attributes. Simple. These are the concept. It's represent under the ER diagram, entity relationship diagram. And then what exactly the use of ER diagram? With the help of the ER diagram, we create the logical view of our database. That is simply the concept. Then next, that one is, now we will understand the particular next point, that is the relationship type and relationship set. What is meant by the relation type and relation sets? Okay. Then because of we understand the ER diagram, ER is an entity. We up to the now we understand the entity related concept. Now we will understand the relationship related concept. That is the ER, that is entity relationship diagram. Okay, everyone understand the entity means what? Then again entity type and the entity entity type and the entity set. That is the 3 points comes under the entity. Then entity relationship diagram. Now we want to understand the relationship concept. Then again it comes with the two concept. It's a relationship type and relationship set. Then relationship type represent the association between the entity type. What is meant by the relationship type? For example, student is a one entity type, courses is again another entity type. The relation shows between the student and courses, that one is simply the relationship type, and it's represent a relationship is enrolled in. One student one enrolled in a particular course, right? That is simply the relation. It shows the relation, and relation comes with a relation type. What is the relation type here? That is enrolled in is a one relationship type. Okay. And then relationship type represent the association between the entity type. Entity type means student is one entity type and course is another entity type. Enrolled in a relationship type that exists between the entity type student and course. In a diagram, relationship type is represented by a diamond. Means when the two entity type have a relation, that one is represent with the diamond. Okay, that is simply the, and that is the entity relationship type. Okay, that is simply the concept. Now set up relationship of the same type. It's a type, now relationship set. Set up relationship of same type is known as a relationship set. Like enrollment have a different type. It may be enroll online, enroll by with a physical process, or it may be enroll with a particular another way. It's simply the enrollment set or the relationship set with the enrollment, and that one is represented with the E1, E2, E3. Okay, that one is student 1 enroll with the course C2, student 2 enroll with the course C1. That one is simply the concept related to the enrollment or the enrollment set, and the particular set relationship of the same type is known as a relationship set, and all the enrollment type have a same relationship set, right, which are same use. Then we can say that this is the relationship set, or we can say that E1 is a enrollment represent between the S1 and C2. That is again a difference between the enrollment type, we can say that. S2 is showing the relation between the E2 showing the relation between the S2 and the C1. That's why it comes with the enrollment type, that is a enrollment set, or it may be a relationship set, and under the same type. Okay, under the same relationship type, that is student enroll the course. That's why it's a and comes under the same enrollment or the relation type, so relation set. Then next, that one is degree of relationship set, means a particular number of different entity like student 1, 2, 3 entity set participate in a relationship set is called a degree of relationship. Like a particular entity set a relationship with itself, that is again one scenario. Then entity set a relationship with another entity set, that one is again the one example. Then n entity sets a relationship with n another entity set, that is again the scenario, and that's we can say that degree of relationship set. We will understand it with the example. That one is unary, binary, and array. Then first unary relationship, when there is an only one entity set participate in a relation, means single entity set. Like we can say that person entity set contains it may be the man and woman. Then it's person again relation with the relationship type with the married to again another person. That's why the entity set is a single entity set, and itself is a relation with the help of this relationship type, and we can say that that is a unary relationship. Means particular person is a entity set relation with the again the same entity set, means one object of a person entity set have a relation with another object of a person entity set with a particular relation type. Then we can say that that is a unary relationship. That is simple the concept, and that's why it's mentioning with the only one entity set participate in a relation. It's a person is an entity set, again it's a relationship with itself, right? Then next, binary relationship is a student is an entity set, then enroll with relation have the course, means it's come with a two entity set, student and course, and it's have a relation, that is enroll in, and that's why it's mentioned with the binary relationship. Why it is called the binary relationship? Because of two entity set, student and course, participating in a relation. That's why it's mentioning with the binary relationship. Then n array relationship, when there are the n entity set, means student, course, or it may be the teacher, then classrooms, then labs. These are the entity sets participating in a relations. The relationships is called an n array relationship. Simple. That one is simple. The department example itself, student is an entity set, faculty is an entity set, then laboratories are the entity set, then again the classrooms are the entity set, and then four entity sets, we can say that four array relationship. right? Same thing, n, it may be the 10, it may be the 20, right? That is the relation with the multiple entity sets. We can say that that is a n array relationship. Then next, that one is a cardinality related to the or we will understand the concept related to a relationship that is comes with the cardinality. Number of times an entity of an entity set participate in a relationship. Means consider student is an entity set participates in a particular or how many times it participate with a relation in a relationship, that we can say that the cardinality. It's have types: one to one relationship, many to one relationship, many to many relationship. That one is we will understand one by one. Now we will understand one to one. Only once in a relationship. For example, that one is a male married to female or woman. That is simply the one to one relationship, and relationship type is a married to. Same thing, M1 with a relation to F2, M2 relation to F1, M3 relation to F3. Means if we see that, if we observe that single entity of a male, entity set of a male relation with the another entity set, and that one is only a one to one, and that type of a relationship type we can say that's a one to one relationship, or we can say that the cardinality. Then next, that one is many to many. Like here is simple example: student, that one is M student enrolled in n types of courses. Means what? That one is not a one to one, that one is not a one to many, that one is a many to many. Like a 4 student enrolled in a 2 type of courses. That one is a 4 to 2 is a relationship. That one is a many to many relationship. When entity in all entity sets can take a part more than once in the relationship, cardinality is many to many. Like S1 is enrolled with 2 courses, right? S1 enrolled with 2 courses, and again the particular single C3 or the course enrolled by the 3 student. Means a single student enrolled with the multiple courses, and single course enrolled with the multiple student. That's why it comes with a many to many cardinality or relationship. Now next, that one is a many to one. When entity is one entity set can take part only once in the relationship set, an entity in other entity set can take a part more than once. Means that one is many to one, many student enroll with a single course. It's come with a representation of many to one cardinality. That one is simply the concept. That is, when entities and one entity set can take a part only once in the relationship set, an entity in other entity set can take a part more than once in the relationship set. This is a cardinality related to the many to one. Many student enroll the single course. Then next, that one is this is end with the cardinality, is about the one to one, many to one, many to many. Then which one is represent the relationship. Then the total participation, and then the next concept, that one is a participation constraint. That is it contained with the 2 type is a total participation and the partial participation. Each entity in the entity, why we understand this concept, what is exact the entity, entity set, entity type, then again it comes with the relationship set and the its type. Then again third concept, it's a participation constraint. That one is why we understand this, because of we need to understand the ER diagram, entity relationship diagram. Entity, we already understand the entity concept Now we already understand with the relationship. Now we will understand the next concept under the ER diagram or ER model, that is a participation constraint. It again represent with the two type. It's a total participation and the partial participation. Then total participation, each entity in the entity set must participate in the relationship. Means student, we will understand student and all the student relationship with a particular course. That's, we can say that total participation of the student entity set, right? That one is simply the total participation. Means student set contains a 4 student, all the student enrolled in a particular course. It may be the same course, it's a course 1. All the 4 students enrolled with the C1, course 1. We can say that student entity set is totally participated in a particular relation. Okay, course, it may be the not, right? Then we will understand the next is a partial participation. It's a entity set may or may not participate in a relationship. Means a particular entity, it may be the not a participate with the particular relation. All the student relation with the particular course, means a student entity set is a totally participate in a relation, but this course entity set is not a totally participate with the relation. Why? Because of C4 is not a relation with the particular student. That's why course entity set is a partial participation, and the student entity set, we can say that's a total participation. It's a simple the concept with the total participation and the partial participation. Now we will understand the next point. That one is it's a end with the participation constraint. That one is next point. That one is a weak entity type and the identifying relationship. That one is a weak entity type and the identifying the relationship. Then we will understand what is meant by the weak entity and how exact we will identify the relation. Entity type has a key attribute which uniquely identifies each entity in the entity set, right? We already know the key entity set, but there exists some entity type, means entity type for which key attribute cannot be defined. It may be the some entity type we cannot define any key attribute. Why? We will understand. Because and that entity set, we can say that is a weak entity type. Like employee is a entity type, then dependent is another entity type. Like employee has a mother, father, children's, wife, means that comes under the dependent as an entity type, and dependent entity type we represent with the double square box. That one is a employee has a relation with the many peoples, or these many peoples have a dependent on an employee. The dependent entity type does not run with any key attribute. Why? Because of it's depend on an employee. When the particular employee left the particular company, then it's not a relation with any key attribute. We cannot define the key attribute under this entity type because of it's depend on an employee. Whenever the employee left the company, it's automatically disconnect the relation between this entity type, and that's why this entity type we can say that is a weak entity type. We cannot define the key attribute to that entity type. Okay, that is simple the example. Then it may be the application wise it changes that relation. Like we understand the employee and dependent example, same thing. It may be the comes with the banking application. It's come with another concept. It's related to the weak entity type. It's end with the particular today's lecture. that one is we already covered about to entity, then entity with the entity type, entity set, and the entity. Then we will understand the relationship, that is a relationship type, and the relationship set, relation sets. Then next, that one is participation, total participation, or it may be the partial participation. In before that, it's a cardinality. Then after that, we will understand the weak entity and how we identify the relation as a point of view of a weak entity. Okay, thank you.